Okay, welcome to this Eyes on Europe Facebook video. We're here at the European Parliament and we're here with Lena Düpont, who is a German MEP for the CDU, for the Christian Democratic Union. So thanks for taking the time and thanks for doing this interview.
Thanks for being here.
So first question, your name is a French name. Where does it? Do you have any French ancestors and do you use the French pronunciation here in Belgium?
Yeah, we do use the French pronunciation, which caused a lot of trouble, especially here in the Parliament, because it's written with the U umlaut, so it's kind of Germanization of the word, and it goes back far in history to the 17th, 18th century, where my ancestors came from France and then moved over to Germany. And then we spread just over whole Germany.
All right, and I know that you know a little bit the Brussels bubble. You've been working here for quite some time, where you had different jobs, among others as parliamentary assistant, but now you're an MEP, you got elected as politician, you're more in the spotlight. How has that experience been so far in the first months here?
Oh, it's not that easy to put it in just one word, but if I have to, it would be intense. Really intense, really interesting, really more tight schedule than I had before. And in the end, I think it's somehow a way of coming home again, because I've started in Brussels here. I was, let's call it, socialized in the European way of dealing with politics here in the Parliament, especially of the way we negotiate, the way we find compromise, and so on. And I always got stuck here in Brussels with the city, but as well with the Parliament and the European way of dealing with politics. And that's why I decided to at least try to come back. It wasn't my plan to come back as an MEP after all, but you know, there were quite some historic changes. We all heard of Brexit, and 2016 was a year which was quite decisive for me in my decision then to run up as a member of Parliament, and luckily I got elected.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
So in this European Parliament you are part of the European People's Party group, which is the largest political group in the European Parliament, representing 25% of the total amount of MEPs. How does such a huge political family manage to work together inside the European Parliament?
You know, it's always good structured, always, and it's always, we do have certain structures where we work on. We do have our group meetings, we have the prep meetings, which are especially for the committee members in one special area, and there we find our ways to discuss the topics we need to discuss. I'm a member of the Libe Committee, I'm a member of the substitute member of the Agriculture Committee and Regional Policy, and I'm missing the word for Gleichstellung. Gender equality, thanks. So it's 4 different committees where we work on. You need to have a clear structure where you can discuss things you need to discuss within the group. And that's what we're doing in the group meeting, in our working groups, which are somehow putting together at least 2, 3, 4 committees which are dealing with nearly the same topics. That's the way how we structure our work here, and discussion is always important and none of the time that fruitful as we wish to, but you need to have the exchange of views between different member parties, between different members, because we all know that our national delegation do play a role in our work here as well, and you need to have the discussion about where does who stand and how can we deal with that in a negotiation process.
Since we talked about EPP, I wanted to ask you if you think you are a conservative, if you consider yourself as a conservative, and what conservatism means to you. And since there was a sort of green wave in Germany and in Belgium and other countries in the European elections, and it seems that for especially the young voters, progressive parties and green parties are very attractive at the moment. How do you think your party can be still appealing to young voters?
or at least I'm one of the youngest members in our party. We just met or just came from a meeting where especially the young members, we do have a young members network in our group as well, where we meet and try to identify the topics that we as a young member want to deal with and need to deal with. During election time, it was quite tough being part of the Conservative Party. So if you go back to your first question, if I consider myself as conservative, yes, I do. But we have two different, let's call it, strengths of conservatives. And I would call myself more of the liberal part of being conservative, focusing on what we do have on social economy, like the German way of soziale Marktwirtschaft, which is very important for us and for me as well, but seen from a kind of liberal point of view. So I would call myself liberal conservative or conservative liberal in a liberal way, which means in the end that I do think we're still attractive for young people, but we need to address them more than we did in the past time. I think what helped the Greens was the way we discuss about climate change, or the way we discuss about policies tackling that. We can do better there. We all know that, but we have to take into consideration what we expect from whom. We can do more on an industrial level. We can do more on agricultural level. We can do more on let's call it what social level society can do. But we have to bring it together so it does function in the end. Because it won't help if we do have just good ideas, or just say certain targets where we want to go to, but we don't have a plan how we can go there and how we can actually take on board everyone that can cause a difference. Because if you take the example, let's say the automotive sector in Germany. I'm coming from Lower Saxony. It's quite important sector for my constituency. We won't make any change if we don't take on board the persons who are working there, because they're relying on it and they're building up their jobs, their lives, their families, everything on the way they build cars. Yeah? So we need to take on board especially the ones we are trying to convince to contribute to that. If we don't do that, then we will have no effect at all. That's what I would call, we need to balance it right between what we want to achieve on economic scale, on social scale, on environmental scale, and we need to define the way we're getting there. And I think what the European Union could do at its best is to share our knowledge of technical support, of inventions we could do, and I think we got so many great brains throughout the whole union, and we couldn't take on board all of them to just find the best solution to tackle our effort in the end.
Your inclusive approach is very interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're also part of a member of the delegation to the EU Montenegro Stabilization Association Parliamentary Committee. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, do you believe in the Balkan countries joining the European Union in the near future? Is this a possible prospect to you?
I think we need to distinguish a bit between the countries that are already in the negotiation process, already in our partnership process. I found it not only surprising, but kind of, I would just call it, quite a bit devastating what just happened to Albania, or was it Albania and Macedonia, because they had made such great effort to join the European Union, and we just had one single head of member state just destroying it. And the signal we sent out in this case was just unbelievable, because they had made all these efforts to join the European Union, they had intensified the fight against corruption. They had set up their, let's call it, stately order. They did everything we wanted them to do, and then we had just one member of the council saying, not at all. And what I found most depressing in this case was that we had, Macron, I think, was right in saying we need to think about our ways we deal with enlargement process. We need to think about our criteria you put forward, and we need to think about our aims at enlargement policies. But you can't put an example on just these two states who are really moving forward in our direction in the moment where they hoped for opening up the new chapters for a negotiation process, and we just say, all right, we need some internal discussion, we'll see you later. This was just catastrophic in the end. Concerning enlargement policies, let's call it an overall picture, I would be a bit more conservative or just a bit more, let's say, we should take a minute just to see in which union we want to include them. So I had called it in the during election time, like we need to in German it's institutionelles Aufräumen. So we need to clean up a bit our structures and our policies here in the European Union. We need to find good ways, new ways how the institution, European Commission, Council and Parliament could work on a, let's call it, new basis together with a stronger parliament, of course, a stronger parliament, and we need to find ways how we can, let's call it, deepen our own structure before we take on board new members, because I think we should do just one step and then the other.
Right, so you talked about inclusion, enlargement, different topics. What are your priorities for your mandate here for the next 5 years? Is there something in particular that you and your party want to push for?
Yeah, some of them we already touched in the discussion we just had. I think there's taking into account what the Commission says as well, because they are the ones proposing whatever then will come out of the Commission. For me personally, and sometimes or most of it belongs to my committees as well. I think we do have, that's what we call 2, 3, 4 main topics where we urgently need to find solution in the next 5 years or in this period, because they are all going into the deep core of what we call the European integration, our core values, which is of course the Green Deal, which will play a decisive role in the future, where I would say, as I just mentioned, we need to balance and right between technology, using technology, invention, taking on board industrial players, taking on board agricultural players to find the best solution in the end. The same goes for, which is one of my committees as well, the Common Asylum and Migration Policy, which is a similar complex story as the Green Deal will be, that we need to find workable solution. We need to take on board what the Council does, we need to take on board what the Commission will propose in the coming years, and we need to unblock the situation in Council to find solution, because we all know that it's not, that there will always be migration, if it is irregular or regular, and we need to deal with it. And we need to find European solution, because we can't do it on our own. We can't do it just simply by one member state. It won't help at all. The third thing I would say is what I just touched at. We need to re-clear our structures here in the European Union. So we need the Parliament to be stronger than it was before, which relies on the way we deal with our job. I deal with my job, but we also need the Council to come to just step a bit ahead of anonymity. So we need to have more policy fields, we need to have more decisions that are taken not just by one vote, but by majority vote, which goes for the security policy as well, which goes for the the outer appearance of the European Union as well. So I think in this case we do have quite severe topics where we need to have European solution because we can't do it on our own. It's like Green Deal, European and Common Asylum and Migration System. We need the security and defense on the table, and I think if we are about to find solution for that in the coming years, we're it leaves us at good work. So it's not going to be very boring in the next 5 years, I think.
You talked about a stronger European Parliament. Well, as an MEP, how decisive do you think the role of the Parliament is in the European decision-making? Do you personally feel like you can make a difference and convey your voters' opinions inside the institution?
Yes, of course, because we are the only institution that does belong directly to an electoral vote. We do have this indirect democratic responsibility if you look at the Council, and if you look at the Commission with some argumentation as well. But the European Parliament is the only institution that does actually represent our voters and our electors, and ask about if we can take really a decision here. Yes, of course we can do. It does function a bit different than we are used to from national parliaments, because we have to be as unified as possible in the European Parliament itself. We do not have this, let's call it the difference between being a member of the opposition party or being a member of the government party. We need to focus on what we do, what we want to achieve, and to defend it against Commission and against Council. At the same time, find ways of working together with them. Because we do have these three institutions. I'm a member of Parliament. Of course, I consider ourselves to be as strong as the other institution, and we need to prove that. And we need to prove that by just finding new ways of cooperating, new ways of working together and making our points clear. And we can do that by being as unified as possible here in this, which is not easy, because we do have these political difference, we do have this difference between national delegation, but it's part of the game. And we need to find ways of working together.
Of course.
So you touched upon the so-called climate crisis. Do you think your constituency is concerned by that? Do you think that's a priority for them? You talked about the Green Deal, and do you think, as we discussed, what the term conservatism means? Don't you think the Christian democracy could conserve the planet and could be more active than, for example, the Social Democrats and the Liberals on that issue? Or do you think economic concerns are too important to make that a priority?
That's exactly the point. It's not economy versus climate, or just to put it on economy and leave climate aside, or just to put it on climate and leave economy aside, because we need both. And if we need to, what I was just saying, we need to rebalance it. We can be more ambitious
Sorry, excuse me.
No problem. We can be more ambitious, everyone knows that. But we need to balance it right, and we need to see where we can take advantage of what we have on industrial level. Because especially in Germany, we have brilliant people working on technical solution for new ways of mobility, new ways of how we deal with agriculture, how we tackle greenhouse gas emission, and this is what we need to rely on, because we need to help these people finding solutions that could work, not only as an example, not only for a smaller constituency or for a smaller region. So we need to find solutions, and we can find them throughout Europe, because we're not the only ones with brilliant people in Germany. We do have fantastic scientists working on solutions that could actually help us in this way, and that's what the European Union, from my side, could do. Just support them as much as we can.
That's very interesting because actually it echoes one article that Frederic wrote a couple of weeks back about the possibility to combine our current economy and the preservation of the environment. So Frederic, do you have one more question or should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up
with a last concluding question. If you could name one European politician that inspires you in your work, who would it be?
I was actually a person which might have been not that well known in the broader context, but actually the person that was for me the most important person concerning European politics, which was my first deputy, was Eva Klamt, because what she did was just encouraging me to focus on my way towards European politics, to engage in politics, and then at least in the end to join the election campaign and to be as brave as I could be and just try it. And she's one of the most influential person for me in the end.
She must be very proud of you now.
I'm not quite sure, but I will ask her.
We'll check on that. All right, well, thank you for answering our questions. It was a pleasure to have you here, to have us at the European Parliament, and we wish you a very good continuation in your work as an MEP.
Thanks, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.